Yes, I salute you all. Thanks for listening and thanks for being on. Just subscribe to the channel and like the videos. So probably today we are under constitutional history. And today what you are going to look at, we are going to look at the constitutions. The constitutions that have existed ever since independence, ever since Uganda got independence. But nevertheless, most of the historians say that the 1900 Uganda Agreement was the first constitutional document. But nevertheless, we appreciate it, and it's among the first. It is the first constitutional document that we received. But however, for us, we are going to look at the constitutions that we are brought in immediately after the white man gave Uganda its what? Independence, probably. And for you to understand constitutional history, basically you are equipped by the law. Because you can't study something of which you don't know the footprint of its history. So we are looking at history. Where does it come from? So probably, remember, Uganda received independence in 1962, whereby it was declared independent. And remember, the people that colonized Uganda were the England. And England was under the feudal, had federal states, you get. And basically here, when Uganda was given independence, it gave overwhelming powers to the king by then, who was Kabaka Mutesa. And he was named as the first president of what? Of Uganda. So basically, immediately when the white man gave Uganda its independence, we received the 1962 Constitution. And this 1962 Constitution gave overwhelming powers to the king. Actually, Uganda was under federal what? Federal states by then when it received what? Independence. So the 1962, remember when you look at the background before independence, realize that we have the 1900, we have the 1902, we have the 1911 and the 1920 orders in council. So these rules, all the laws that were in the white man, the imposition of the laws of the white man, realized that it was just a copy of the constitution that we obtained at independence. You get? So basically that was the first constitution that we received. And it made the prime minister, who was by then, a prime minister who was Obote, by then he was under the UPC party. Remember by that time, I don't want to go more so in the history of the history before 1962, but we shall look at it before. Remember there was a coalition of the UPC and the KY alliance, Kabaka Yeka and the UPC. So when that coalition happened, these people, all these Ugandans, immediately they got independence, they had to divide powers among themselves. That's why Obote, who was the leader of the UPC, became the prime minister by then, making Kabaka the president of the Republic of what? Of Uganda. So we go to the 1962 Constitution. So this Constitution, for it gave more power the king, who was the Kabaka of Uganda, at the expenses of other what? Kingdoms and chiefdoms. And the prime minister, remember the saying among all people in Uganda is that someone can never be contented of the power that is given to him. Because when you give someone power, he feels that the power is not enough and he wants more. So in Uganda, there grew a tension between the two. That's where we shall see the UPC and KY break down. However, we shall see it in the Kabaka crisis in another what? Discussion or another series. But however, Obote was made the prime minister by then. But due to the fact that he thought that this thing must be changed, for him actually had a mentality that we can't be governed by Kabaka. A mere fact was from Uganda, said that no, Uganda is not composed of Uganda region. So there was need for reinforcement or reinforcement to form his what? To form a republic in Uganda. Remember actually by then, realized that the Kabaka wanted even to overthrow what? Wanted to overthrow Obote from the central region, to send him far away from the central. But there came a tension which led to the Kabaka crisis of the 1966. This Kabaka crisis, I won't go further since we are discussing only constitutions. This Kabaka crisis made the Kabaka to be defeated. You get? So when Kabaka was defeated, Kabaka was deported because of his defeat. You get? So here Obote declined, actually it was declared under the Uganda National Assembly, which was the parliament by then. It was declared that they had abolished the 1962 constitution. Remember, the abolishment of the 1962 constitution was also abolishing the federal states that were in Uganda by then. You get? So there came a lot of challenges. You get? And it led to the occurrence of the 1962, the 1966, the Pigeonhole what? Constitution. So how does it come? Remember, there was a strong debate between the two. Realize that here Obote himself, after being declaring himself as the sole ruler of the Republic of Uganda and declaring Uganda as a republic after his success in the 1962 Kabaka crisis, realized that there was check on the validity of the 1966 constitution. So, and the good case that backs up this argument, or this argument, is the case of Uganda versus Commissioner of Prisons, expert Michael Matovu. Actually, this is a good case whereby we realize that this Michael Matovu was a chief of the Saza of Wudu by that time. So, due to the fact that the Kabaka was deported, these chiefs or the Basaza heads, for them also they developed some envy on what was happening in Uganda. Remember, by that time they brought in the deposition procedure, or the deposition deportation act, whereby all those rulers were supposed to be deported, taken to exile. So this Michael Matovu, because he was against the government, he was arrested. More so in 1966, was arrested. So Michael Matovu, when he was arrested, he was, after being arrested, or while he was still in prison, they passed the emergency rules or the emergency laws. And these emergency laws were prohibiting movement. You get? So by the time when he was arrested into prison, that's when they passed the emergency rules. Then he was released. But however, after being released, he was re-detained because he was against the emergency rules that had been passed. Then this forced Michael Matovu to go to court, saying that these emergency rules or the emergency laws were against the constitution. For him, he believed the 1962 constitution was saying that the 1966 constitution was invalid and was null. So he went to court, and the court put down two doctrines. He used the Hans-Kelsen theory and the political question doctrine. When we trace the footprints of the political question doctrine, comes from America, whereby realize that there is a case that happened in America still on the political doctrine question. Political doctrine question, basically for it was to make sure that any president or any body of government or any personnel, once he comes to power, either by consent of the citizens or by force. However, once it is a success, his political regime is also a success. You understand? Here, court tells itself that for it cannot question the validity of government. It is there to question the validity of the constitution. Because if the judiciary is also part of the government, it can't question itself. So that's the political question doctrine that was put in place. Furthermore, when you go to the Hans-Kelsen theory that was used by the courts of law, it indicated when you look at the Hans-Kelsen, Professor Hans-Kelsen, realize that for him he had his philosophy that the law is their norms. You get realize that he said that the laws are norms. However, he also lamented and said that the legal order moves with the legal norms. Understand? He said that in generations, or the generations to come, we cannot still have the same laws. Behavior of the society changes and the people's behavior changes. Basically, here indicated that even the laws have to change according to the behaviors or according to the norms of the society. Hence, they summed that the 1966 constitution was a valid constitution. So we have looked at 1962 and 1966. That is the Pigeonhole. But however, nevertheless, after declaring the Pigeonhole constitution, which is of 1966, being declared valid, realized that there was abolition of kingdoms, were abolished. Those federal states were abolished. Realized that Obote became the sole ruler or the president. Uganda was declared the republic, you get, as the president. And also even the National Assembly got powers, or got overwhelming powers in the state, you get. So basically note that in mind. But however, nevertheless, this Pigeonhole constitution came in as an interim constitution, because immediately after the 1966, there came the 1967 constitution. So this 1966 constitution was like an interim constitution. It was there to buy time for the coming into force of the 1967 constitution. So basically, that's the full constitution that Obote brings in, because he brings in the 1966, then after he brings in the 1967 constitution in fulfillment of his regime. So because the court had also stamped that however much for you, regardless the way you come to power, whether you have used the guns, whether you have killed the president, so long as your coup or your revolution is a success, your government is also a success. And also, even court indicated that each government must have its own principle. Even though it's you, tomorrow you come as the President of the Republic of Uganda, amending the constitution is not forbidden. You can amend it so long as you move on the consensus of the majority. You get, you can come with your own principles or guidelines. So basically note that in mind. That's why even it changed from 1966 to 1967. You get, so the 1967 was to follow the regime of what? The regime of Dr. Milton Obote. So up to then, realize that the constitution that comes next is the constitution of 1995 constitution, basically. But before, from the interval of 1967 to the time frame of 1995, realize that a lot happened. You get, Obote was overthrown by Idi Amin Dada. Realize that Idi Amin Dada ruled Uganda without what? A constitution. When you go to the 1971 military coup of Idi Amin Dada, he overthrew Dr. Milton Obote, and Uganda became a country without what? A constitution. You get, but nevertheless, we shall see those scenarios, those events, those constitutional events that happened in another what? Series. But the constitution that we are having even up to date is the constitution of 1995, basically, that we are using up to date. It recognizes the rights of man, it calls Uganda as a republic, it recognizes all the powers of all the three arms of government, the judiciary, the executive, and the legislature. So basically note that in mind. We have the 1962 constitution, we have the 1966 Pigeonhole constitution, we have the 1967 constitution, and then the 1995 constitution that we have even up to date. So thank you for watching. Anything that you feel that is not unclear, please put it in the comment section. We shall all attend to those comments and you fully understand what you have not understood very well. Thank you very much. Stay blessed.